Susan Schwartz. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
You got it right, yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining POINT5 Podcast today. And let me just give a background because this is very impressive. Located in Arizona, PhD holder, author of 6 books, and written many journals, book chapters, and over 100 presentations, seminars, and podcasts. That is very impressive. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for letting me be one of these. I'm sure that our discussion will be quite interesting.
I don't doubt it because I was looking for some questions to ask you, and they literally all seem like they would be viral questions and relating to almost everybody. So I'm very interested to see where this goes.
Okay.
Okay, but right off the bat, why don't you let people know where they can find you, just in case they stop listening partway through?
Oh, yes. My website is www.susanschwartzphd.com, and on it are a list of the books. I have articles and ways to get a hold of me there as well.
Okay,
So, yeah.
fantastic. Are you on social media at all?
I am on social media. I'm on LinkedIn,
Okay.
Facebook, and Instagram. So people can find me there as well. Susan Schwartz, PhD.
Awesome. Before we get into it, what got you interested in psychology? Why don't we start there at the start of your journey?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been doing this in one form or another since college. So I just kept on getting degrees and specialties along the way. And what got me interested? Well, people are incredibly interesting, always changing, always with issues and joys. So you get the whole range of what it is to be a person and a lot of challenges on being oneself. So it's always, how would I say, never the same.
Yeah.
Really
there's
never the same.
Tons to explore. I studied a really little bit of psychology in college, and I learned how much it's developing, and there seems to never be an end to it.
No, but let me just say the difference between what I do as a Jungian analyst and what a psychologist does is pretty significant.
Okay.
So oftentimes now, psychologists will tell you what to do. I'm going to be superficial about this because I know some deal with longer term and more in-depth exploration, but oftentimes people just are satisfied with somebody who will tell them what to do. Do this homework, this is your problem. And what I do is more reflective, thinking about things. And I don't tell someone what to do, but together, and that's the key word, we figure out what they need in their life, what they want, what they desire, and it includes what's going on in the unconscious. So psychology is very conscious-based. Analysis is conscious and unconscious-based.
Does the process take longer?
It does. And why it does is because to really understand yourself in any amount of depth, it takes longer. You know, I mean, because we are complex human beings and we are worth it. We're really worth the time that it takes to understand ourselves because we are so complex and our world is so complex now that, we need to go into a lot of things. You can't just go into one, you know.
Yeah. Is that what regular psychology does then? It's very next step with, you mentioned homework. I found that interesting.
Yeah. Well, now that's my impression.
Yeah.
And a caveat is that there are a lot of psychologists who go more deeply into the psychology with people. They're psychodynamic, but that's what it's called. But much is somebody who will tell you what to do. The problem is that we learn to ask someone to tell us what to do rather than let's figure it out. Let's follow a process. You got here in some kind of process. Let's figure out why that happened and how you can get through it and manifest your strengths. Manifest your strengths.
It sounds very open, and it sounds like you don't really know the direction it's going to head in. That sounds very interesting. Wow.
Yes,
that must require a lot of experience and knowledge to be able to leave it that open. So.
You're right on all counts. The openness is what is exciting. The openness is why I don't prepare, but I listen.
Yeah.
So when someone comes in to talk about themselves and what's going on, I want to be listening very carefully. There is another piece as well that analysts have to have their own analysis in their training. That's not, it's therapists and psychologists, counselors, they have some. They're required to have some, but not in the depth of an analyst. Because if you go to somebody, you don't want them to be projecting their trip onto you. I mean, you want you to figure out your requirements, what you need, what your losses are, what your gains are. You don't want someone telling you you should do this and this from their own problems.
That sounds, I feel like that can resonate with everybody. I feel like that's, wow. And that's that's what you believe is happening in other forms of psychology and why you chose.
Yeah.
Your
That's
direction.
why I did. Yes, because it resonated more with me and my search for depth and understanding. I think our world needs more depth. We can see it. You asked me, social media. Well, social media can be very deep, but it can also be very superficial.
Yeah.
And it depends on how you use it. So if you use any therapeutic technique in a really deep and thoughtful way, that's one thing. If you use it superficial, that's what you're going to get, a superficial answer, and it'll stay superficial. The problem, I think, is that problems reoccur throughout our lives. I mean, that's to be expected, but you don't want to just get a Band-Aid.
Yeah, that's a great example. You take what you put in from it, and it sounds like this work would be very beneficial in terms of. It sounds a little bit more difficult. Would you say that than for most people?
No, I don't think it's more difficult. I think actually it's more interesting. I think it's more interesting.
That's a better perspective. Well,
yeah. I mean, it should be interesting and not just looked at as difficult. I think understanding ourselves anyway shouldn't be so easy. We don't want to be simple creatures. We want to be complex as we are. So, I think what I think is important is having curiosity. Like, how did I get into this problem? What happened? And how am I going to get through it? And that's where I wrote all the books and articles from people who came and talked to me, other people that I have known about issues that go on inside of all of us, and to explore it as deeply as I could and to just keep on exploring it.
These are the books, because your book titles, where when I read them, I could feel it on some of those titles. They're very powerful titles just by themselves. And so these are common areas that are showing up for most people when looking into them.
Exactly. And
Wow.
yeah, my experience is also not just people in the United States, because I do quite a few podcasts and presentations all over the world.
Mhm.
And what I find, and I think what people find, is that we're people.
Mhm.
So we have kind of similar experiences, different cultures. So there's nuances on different cultures, but to be taken into account, different political systems to be
Mhm.
taken into account,
Yep.
but people understand all of them, no matter where they live,
Yeah.
because yeah, because we're all kind of the same in some ways.
Yeah, that makes total sense. There's a very simple subject called like social media marketing, and one of the big things is when you're targeting a global audience, you're talking about things that are less culturally specific. And there's actually a lot of areas that we all share. Like we all know what a pet is, we all know what a dog, a cat is,
Yeah,
things like that. I'm obviously giving such a simple example that just
perfect.
shows that I know absolutely nothing, but
No,
that's exactly what this podcast is for us small folk to try to understand a complex subject and get interested here. So
no.
that
Let
makes
me say,
sense.
yeah, let me just say that it's not being small. It's not a small person. It's
Yeah.
actually when you said pet. So this is very much in Jungian psychology and also in any analytical work. What do the symbols mean? So you say a dog, a cat, a house. What do they mean? So what do they mean to this person in this culture? What do they mean to that person? But we all know about houses, cats, and dogs, but we're going to have different associations.
I was just
And
gonna say I learned about associations in the introduction class to psychology, I think, and I always found that interesting how everybody can see something completely different.
yeah, so and similar. So similar and different.
Yeah.
Jung called it the collective unconscious. So what he said was that the basis of us, we all understand because we're human beings. Yeah.
Mhm.
And yet each one has a different association. Someone might have an association of a house with their tent at the refugee camp.
That's a great example. And
Mhm.
somebody might even see their house as something they could never get rid of, and somebody might just see it as an asset. There's
Ex-
completely different spectrums to that.
Except, and that's why people are always interesting. And that's what I meant about curiosity. So if someone dreams about a house, I will always say, because dream work is a huge part of where
And we're
the,
gonna get into that later too, because
yeah,
it seems very interesting. I was writing it and got a little clever. I'm like, let's let you stay up at night and talk about dreams last, because I know everybody's gonna be thinking about it after. But anyways, you were talking about dream work and how people think about a house. Sorry to cut
yes.
you off.
And so I will say, but what house is that? So you dream about a house. What house is that? Is that your childhood house? Is it the house you're in now? Is it a house you wish for? Is it a futuristic house? Is it a house from 100 years ago? I mean, it could be a million different things. There's where we are so interesting, and we need our personal association to any dream symbols. You need a personal association to it. There's something else that you said about sitting up at night and
Yeah.
writing. Okay, so Jung calls this an active imagination. So you kind of just write. Where does it come from? You talk. It's like talking to yourself.
Where
You're
does
like,
it come from?
yeah, you're
Literally.
writing. You're writing you, and it's a wonderful way to get in touch with, as Jung says, your active imagination, your
Mhm.
imaginative self. It's like releasing energy. That's why it
Mhm.
feels so good to kind of, write and draw, paint, whatever. You go, now I see what I'm talking about.
so many professionals talk about this process. Joe Rogan talks about his writing process, where he sits and has a computer just alone with himself, and he feels like the writing is handed down, I believe he described. And I was just so interested with how somebody can define that process. Where does the idea come from?
Well, Jung would say, and so this is conceptually what I'm talking about. He would
Yeah.
say where that comes from, it comes inside. It doesn't come like this. It comes more from the inside out, and it's connected to the truth of who we are deeply. So that's another aspect of Jungian psychology. It's quite, you could say, spiritual, not religious, spiritual. So it's like, what is the spirit that moves one? I give an example. There must have been a spirit in you that moved you to have a podcast. It's a creative spirit. It is a life-giving spirit. It's a spirit that wants to keep going. Do you see what I mean by spirit? And what is it connected to? You, your background, spirit in the world, our time, what our time is. A lot of podcasts, and these are ways that people learn about life as well.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
But it gets moved by a spirit inside of each of us.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I knew right away this is going to be the podcast that sends me thinking for several hours at least. And definitely going to be the one that I think back on for trying to understand psychology. Part of me just finds it so difficult to understand like how my own mind works. And sometimes I get totally scared to investigate that. Like, seems a little scary sometimes.
So let me just say, what I would say, so this is what I would say, is that explore the scariness. Because what you're going to find along the path is you're going to find you. So are there frightening things inside of ourselves? Yeah, but we want to be able to understand that we can deal with them. So, it's like a fairy tale. So this is another piece of Jungian psychology. Fairy tales show us, movies do the same, videos, etc. They tell a story about who we are. And along the way, there always is an obstacle. There's the unknown. There's the kind of scary dragons. And how do you get through? And how you get through is you persevere through it. And you say, you have a dialogue with those scary characters. What are you doing here? What do you want to tell me? Should I really be afraid? Or do you have information about me that you want to convey to me?
Mm-hmm.
So that takes away some of the apprehension to allow you to go into it, because in scary things or things you think you can't accomplish are the things that you really can.
Yeah, the labeling of that as fairy tale is a really good way of making that less scary. It's not real, It's just something you have to work through and learn from it, like you would with any piece of you mentioned books, movies, all that,
Right. That's right. That's right. And the more that you go into your own scary places, it's not that they go away, but you can deal with it. It gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And they have more and more information to tell you. I mean, otherwise it would be kind of boring. You know what the red light means, you know what the green light means, but you want to know, is there some kind of gremlin hanging out on the red light or the green light? And that's interesting.
Yeah, no matter what content I'm consuming, I feel like I'm always learning something or helping myself adjust in a certain way. And I don't feel like anything has ever driven me in the wrong direction if I have the right judgment and I've learned enough. So how could that be something that impacts me is what I'm questioning now.
Exactly. Well, you just answered how you deal with the scary things. Ask yourself the very questions you just said in very clear sentences. You'll get through it.
Okay.
Sometimes I think we are more afraid than we really need to be. And it comes from old fears that maybe we don't still need to have around.
Mm-hmm. And even associations, maybe. I found myself, when I was questioning certain things in my life, and I've associated questioning that maybe with a negative result. That's something that's quite large, but something that I can think on in the future. There.
Yeah, but it's true that, when we associate and we have a negative association, have we overdone the negative? That's kind of what you're saying. And don't we need to find again our strengths and our abilities? That's what analysis is. Find your strengths. Find that you can hold the tension and you can get through it and you're going to be changed. You see, there's the fear, really.
I love that bigger focus on the positives and helping people through it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But we're all afraid to change. So what are we hanging on to? Old material. So we don't change, but we're supposed to change. Every day we change, right? The cells change on our bodies all the time. So, in a way, if we're not open to the scary places, you could say, we're working against nature. Nature says go for it.
Yeah.
No, it does. It does.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big perspective. Oh my goodness. I'm going to listen back on that just for myself. And that seems to really, there's a nice mix of a positive focus to provide strength and also easing worries of fearful ideas and being there for somebody as a, would you say, is it analyst or
I am.
Okay, so as an analyst, helping
Yes.
people through that, it's fascinating.
Well, yeah, but let me just modify that a bit. I would say that I'm not for, I am with. So it's different. It equalizes the story. So I'm not more powerful than the other person. I am with them on their journey. I'm with them, like really with them. And the reason I say that is that it's what you want to be careful about power because we tend to put power onto other people when the power belongs to ourselves.
Yeah. You mentioned the other people projecting their view of you. I might be saying that in a way that wasn't perfect, but as a paraphrase, but that really resonated with me. Just thinking of how different people see the world and their conclusions. I mean, if somebody's telling you exactly what to do, as you mentioned, I feel like that would be almost impossible to do, but it sounds like it's being done so frequently.
It is. Well, I mean, people, they want homework. They want the psychologist to tell them what they should do this week and what they should think about and how they should, act. And it's too controlling.
Yeah, that sounds almost a little creepy just to connect with the audience here. I feel like we could all feel that. That's like, why wouldn't we want to explore ourselves and have somebody else tell? I mean, I could see it in education, but it's not really being done in educate. Is it? Is that even being done there?
Let's put it this way. Real education is critical thinking and critical evaluating. Otherwise, you're memorizing and spewing it out. So this is the same thing. It's having a critical thought towards oneself, critical evaluation. Not critical like negative, but critical like being able to look at all sides of the issue and evaluate. But you see, I think there's another piece, which is that too many people are quite afraid of anybody who's different.
I could see that.
Yeah, because it threatens their own place, except we need to allow differences in ourselves, in our personalities. We've got different aspects. We have one aspect that does this, one does this, one does this, one does this. We want to know all of them. We don't want to say it's only one. I'm not talking about split personality. I'm talking about various parts of ourselves. It's like sometimes you're going to the gym. Sometimes you go to the store. Sometimes you go to the party. At each one, you're going to maybe have a different costume. Same person, different aspects of yourself. And you want to know all those aspects. That means that you allow that you're not just static, always the same. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Well, sorry. I know the writing and research is extensive, so I've actually picked out some very simplistic, not simplistic, but areas where I find I could maybe understand or find something interesting. It's obviously not dug into detail, but asking
Okay.
simple questions because I know that those are going to stick in my mind and get me curious to do further research. So, simple question: what is the as if personality? Because I've never heard of that.
Oh, you haven't?
I've
But
never heard of that.
But you have heard of the imposter syndrome.
I have heard about that, and I saw you put it next to it, and
I did.
I have a question right after for that, and I'm really curious what the as-if personality is because I've never heard about it.
Actually, it is very similar to the imposter syndrome. So I just give a tiny bit of history, a
That'd
little
be
brief.
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the 1940s, there was a Freudian psychoanalyst named Helena Deutsch, and she came up with the phrase as if personality. She was analyzing, now this is quite stereotyped, but it was the 40s, 1940s, many years ago, and she described women, not men, women, even though it applies to men, as superficial, not able to go in depth, unable to really reflect. So kind of like a femme fatale, I'm going to look as if I am okay. I will not reveal my inside self. Everything will look good. How that then, several other psychoanalysts also picked up the term. Another Jungian analyst picked up the term, and I read that person's work. Her name was Hester Solomon, and she talked about the as if personality. And I read it and thought, oh my goodness, I see so many people like this. They come in and they say, I know I'm a fraud. I'm not real. Nobody knows who I really am. That's as if. So I'm functioning.
That makes a
well.
whole lot more sense now.
Yeah. You see how
I wasn't making the deeper connection by why they would say, okay, wow.
And the reason they say that is that they have spent much of their lives pretending, pleasing parents, pleasing teachers, to please friends, to be okay, and underneath feeling cracked and flawed. So that's why they look so put together as if they are real. But when someone comes in and says, I am a fraud, what they are also saying is, I don't feel real. I don't know how to be real. I don't know how to really relax. And the inside never got completely well connected for a variety of reasons, early childhood, all kinds of stuff like that. And through the analytic process, they learn to become real.
Because I read that, I was like, what does that mean? I'm like, how do you become real? And I could see like people. So is that specific to as if different from imposter syndrome? Then is that the external does not feel internal and congruent there?
Yes, they're quite similar. The inner and the outer they're not congruent.
Okay.
So the imposter syndrome, so we see that all the time. You could say easily see it on social media. Someone has their face or their selves photoshopped.
Uh-huh.
Huh? So who's the real one? Or
Oh, great example. I did not think of that.
Yeah, well, it's what happens all the time, right? Who's real?
Wow.
Even so here we have even more. Everyone uses AI now. So who is real? Which is AI? I mean, you can use AI beautifully. You can gather facts. It can be very helpful. It's like a research tool.
Yeah.
But you can also use it to cover over as if I'm smart. I really don't think I am.
I depend on that tool as well. I don't know about the Photoshop. I'm not the pretty type to use that one. But the AI in some areas, I depend on it, and I try to read through it. But there's some areas where if I was to get a huge award for something, I would definitely be up against that, wondering, was that me? Because
there it is. Was that me?
Yeah.
But again, I think if you use it well, attribute this fact to AI. I got this from it. This is me.
Yeah.
It's like you become real as you claim yourself, essentially, equally as you're seen. So the imposter syndrome and the as if personality, they don't know how to be seen. I mean, really seen to the core of being seen. And that's the analytic process. That's a part of it. Any kind of therapy should really do it, but realize that you're seen for who you are. So if someone comes in, they say, I'm a fraud. I take them at their word. What's fraudulent? And are you a fraud now and here? And how are we going to know who's the real you? It's the same thing. Yes.
It's a very constructive way to deal with that. Is it a common way, like if 500 people came in at different times and said the AI situation, would it be common to help people with that issue, or is it vastly different?
I think that AI has become a means for people to get through and not really integrate or learn. So again, it can be used very well, but it can also be used, I'm going to copy it.
Yeah.
I'm not real, as if I'll just copy, put it in, copy, paste, nobody will know. Well, we've got to be able to know, because otherwise we're going to all be robots. So that's what will happen. So you could say the as if personality is a little bit like a robot. They do what's expected. So I'm expected to be this. I'll do that.
I find it interesting. It sounds like you're not saying this is how you deal with it, but actually how you work into being somebody who feels more genuine. That's what I take. That seems so much more constructive than what I thought, because I feel like a lot of people might misunderstand the same way, unless I'm the only one, which I highly doubt it. Is that it's how do I cope with continuing as the same? But I really like things that tell me this is how you can change in a very way that you can control, and I can control what I use and how I credit things.
And control, you could say, I'm going to use, rather than use the word control, we could say, I'm going to use the information wisely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the word control, I know that there's a lot of, it's a gross
hard
word.
Yeah. It is. It is.
Anyways, talking about sometimes gross of a subject, I'm going to use this uplift here to go right into the father of the subject of father. Sorry, I was stumbling on that word. And it seems like there's something to explore here for men and women. I don't know. There's other terms as well.
You just did it, and you explained it well because you stumbled on it. So we could say too many people have had to stumble on the father. So they either didn't have a present one, or he was absent emotionally, or he didn't have a father either, there was maybe divorce, there was war, there was death, there was sorrow, absent emotionally, physically, not partnering, not knowing how. And for years, this situation just remained. Even in the analytic and psychological literature, until the last, say, 25 years or so, very little written on the father. And when you read professional whatevers, and they would talk about different situations with different people, one line on the father. So you can see how little attention he got.
Yeah.
And it's at a detriment to the father and to the child, both. So I wrote one on daughters, one on sons that comes out in May.
Oh, awesome.
But the issue is the dealing with absence, and how do you fill it? Once again, here's the absence. How would you fill it with the presence that you need from also inside yourself?
Mm-hmm.
The issue of fathers, again, if you look at it, it's so unexplored in many ways that it's like a question. How come nobody was looking at this enough? Why was nobody talking about it? So this is what happened when I talk to people. I say, what about family, father, mother, etc. The father was pretty often, I can't say always, pretty often, not very present. Or if he was, he's behind his computer. He is an introvert. Nothing wrong with introverts. But he doesn't attend any of the soccer games. He doesn't go to the plays. He doesn't really participate. He's kind of this silent one on the side. And the other piece of that as well is, what about people who never had a father? So what do they have? A hole in their psyches? No. They have the opportunity to fill it in some kind of way. There might have been somebody down the street, maybe a teacher, grandparents, who knows? But you need a balance somewhere.
Yeah.
So the single parents are okay. That I'm not saying that they're not, and they don't raise bad kids. But you need some balance somewhere, different influences. And the father has been too stuck in a role of being excused. He never had to do anything. Didn't have to talk to his kids about sex, about love, about emotion, giving feedback. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that mothers are there for us for those reasons in large part.
But you know what? I think what I'm saying is, so what about the fathers being there for those reasons? What about expecting fathers to be there for those reasons? Just what you said. We all know it's been on the mom. Okay, let's bring the dads in and let them also influence our lives in good ways.
Wow. So what are some of the ways that a missing father affects a son then?
Well, so I'm just this is not really what I do, but statistically, the son tends to not do as good in school. He doesn't feel very good about himself. He doesn't know really how to do relationships, although, he doesn't know, because he's not talked to emotionally. He's not, honored in who he is. He statistically doesn't do as well as those who had fathers. Might get too lost in drugs, too lost from their body, too much into, even an extension, too much into sports as a way of not being emotional. And I think people suffer, emotionally and psychologically. Their own development gets sacrificed.
Because you mentioned not being talked to, are there core themes that run in there, like isolation or things like that are experienced when a father is absent?
Very much. Isolation, a tendency to withdraw, feel that you're not important, not recognize your own worth as a person, and maybe even what you mentioned a bit ago of a fear of finding out about who they are. Because they're not getting the recognition from the father. Some people, some guys also, some sons, cut on themselves. They damage themselves.
Wow.
Alcoholic, way alcoholic, way drugs. Yes, very severe. Also,
Wow.
Do people get sick? It's a question. Do we get sick if we don't? I'm not just going to put this on fathers, but on the topic of fathers.
Yeah.
If you don't have that interaction in a real close, healthy way, how do you learn how to take care of your own body? How do you feel good about it? How do you feel? Too many people walk around in shame about their bodies.
Wow. And I would never think to think about the question of the father there, and that could also be why it's not written so much. I mean, I honestly don't think I've ever thought of that before I read that on your profile, and I was like, whoa, this is interesting. Let me start asking about this. Is there something that's very different when you look at daughters versus sons for fathers?
Yeah, I have wondered the exact same thing. I don't find that much difference. I find it in the similar areas of body, drugs, feeling good about yourself, self-worth, self-care, partnership. Pretty similar. Of course, they're going to have a different manifestation because culturally, still, I think females get raised in a different way than males do and different than trans. So there's all this difference, but there's a lot of similarities because all of them have to cope with the basic of loss and absence. And we need them. If you think about it, chemically, we're made up of, sperm and egg. So that's in our cells.
This sounds like it touches directly on Jungian analysis, however, the point of being the same. What was the term for that again? Sorry?
Term for what?
About being the same. There was a collective, it was something.
The collective unconscious.
Yes, there we go.
Exactly.
The collective unconscious seems to tie in there.
Yeah, it does. The collective unconscious is why we need some kind of father figure. Again, I don't want to be too binary about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But a figure of somebody, not an authoritarian, not a disciplinarian, a person who will treat us as a person. Too often, it has not been there. It's changing. Not enough, though. Not enough, I don't think. And so that's part of why I wrote the books. And and the amount of people who identify all over the world is amazing, as well as, I just give one example, and I think it says quite a bit. So someone I spoke to who was from China
Yeah.
said in a very low voice, we don't talk about fathers. Culturally, now this is probably somewhat of a stereotype, so I want to be clear about that, but we don't talk about the fathers. The father is not ever challenged. The father is never gone against. It's way in the old Chinese cultural system. I'm not saying it's not in the West, but it seemed stronger in the culture. And yet, that person was saying, wow, I need to say something, even though it's really hard for me to say because it's almost like forbidden.
Yeah. Wow.
Different culture.
And,
yeah.
And that person had a difficulty dealing with the father that was there, or were they just not there and they didn't get that?
They had difficulty dealing with their authoritarian father because that's very much in the Chinese culture. So, and they didn't want to do that, but they also couldn't really rebel either. Do you see, people get caught. And when you're caught, there's where you're going to get free as well. Because you have to. Because it feels too uncomfortable. It feels too uncomfortable. And I think if the fathers paid attention and got more involved in the family, everybody would be much happier.
Yeah. Well, because you're speaking about the father as more of a role, and so that, as you mentioned several times, which is really really nice to fathers, considering that I'm sure that many of them have not been present. But having a role more than the father, just the role that supports that does it have to be the father, or can it be anybody who's?
It can be anyone in that role. It can be another woman. It can be a different man. It can be any combination at all.
Okay.
Can be there. Absolutely. I think, again, I'm just going to go back to what's the difference between daughters and sons. This is what I've found. Statistically, I don't know that it's true or not, but more men report being beaten by their fathers than women. I'm not saying fathers don't beat their daughters, but it seems more of the sons get beaten.
Yeah, if I was to look at a lens culturally there, it would seem, I mean, this is terrible to say, but a little bit more acceptable if it was to the son than the daughter. I feel like that would be headline news if you did that to the daughter. So that would, I mean, that's probably a very bad example, but yeah.
It's a good one. It should be headline news to any child.
Yeah, that's what I was
because it's abusive. It's abusive. But that probably is also what happened to the father. So you can see transgenerationally how we inherit the way we behave towards ourselves and others. And so the more it's talked about, the more people gain awareness. And that's the point of bringing things out.
Yeah, maybe I should touch on that. I what I mean is maybe the political reaction from it. I think that it would be just as many legal consequences, but in the political sphere, I'm sure that would float around a lot more if that was to happen there. So I was just using that as a point of support in the absence of statistics. So
yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah.
Great. So let's talk about another thing that stood out is narcissism, love, and relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds heavy.
Well, the thing about narcissism, and this is the emphasis that I made on it, which was not as pathological. I'm not talking about people who are way on the extreme of narcissism, because they're hard to deal with for sure. But people who have narcissistic tendencies, and we live in a narcissistic nation. So we can't really get away from it. Yeah. And that's not the point. The point is that narcissists usually are quite vulnerable, quite fragile inside, quite don't really love themselves, even though they put out, I'm marvelous, they have a lot of talent, they tend to gain a lot of attention. And if that is used in a healthy way, it's fine. What I wrote the book about was how the narcissist is understood, not excused, but understood, and deal with the isolation of the narcissist. If you ever read the story by Ovid,
Wow.
which is such a cool story on Narcissus, in it, he doesn't talk to anybody. He says to everyone, get away. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to talk to you. And don't you dare come close to me. So internally, this is what's going on in the narcissist. I have to be alone. In the myth, and this is what's interesting as well, Narcissus looks in this pond. People say, oh, they're in love with themselves. In the myth, Narcissus does not know he is looking at himself. So he doesn't even recognize himself in his own mirror. So narcissists see themselves, but not see themselves. They're not really full of it. They're not all impossible. They are isolated inside. They don't know how to come out behind the wall. They are scared. And with some understanding, not just giving in, but understanding, they can learn to relate better. It's the relationship that they're scared of because they're afraid to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And
you mentioned tendencies. This is the right direction to go. Because I'm not a professional to say that, but you can really understand certain topics when they sound like they make sense. And so the way some people talk about narcissists, it seems quite destructive. And you mentioned tendencies. I believe almost anybody could. When you hear narcissist, I always go on the defensive, and I'm like, I've got some areas, at least once in my life, where that's happened, and the constructive way is what you were explaining right there. It's brilliant. And what research did you say was citing that, or what writing was saying that? To understand.
The original story was written by a Greek poet named Ovid, 30 BC. So look how old. Yeah, narcissism has been around. And I think what I'm saying is,
was that analyzed later on? Is that how that was used, or was narcissism directly referenced in there?
Narcissus is directly referenced.
Really?
And
that word has been around that long?
Yep.
Oh,
Narcissus. Yeah, he's a character, and the other character, well, there are a couple of other ones, but the other one that's interesting is named Echo, and she goes after him. She wants him. She's in love with him. Please pay attention. And Narcissus, because he can't manage relationship, says, in effect, forget it. No, no, no. And what happens to her is that her body goes away. She becomes only a voice, echo. What happens to him is he falls into the pond and dies. So the story is one, you don't want to just stay in the role of Narcissus or Echo. You want to see how you can come from these and change and grow.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know there was I didn't know about that. I've never heard about that.
Yeah.
After hearing narcissist so many times in the news, that's a very simple for people to search. 30 BC, was it? Is that the timeline? 30 BC?
Ovid. Exactly.
Ovid.
Yeah. But the other thing is that Echo is usually not ever talked about symbolically. Is it because we negate the feminine in all of us? We can ask these questions. Is it that we follow this isolationism of Narcissus? Because Echo reaches out. And she also is under a curse. It's a whole marvelous unbelievable story as well.
Yeah.
But
that's why I'm excited about it, because it's a story and you can really read it and get so much more out of it than you could even a research paper on it. I mean, that's so exciting to present to people. I did not know about that.
You didn't. I'm glad you know it now, because the other piece of it is that narcissists are not just isolated. They want to relate. They desire to relate. They just don't know how. They didn't learn it. Sometimes people say, oh, this child is the most special on earth. Wonderful, wonderful. And they might become too narcissistic and perform for their parents. They perform for other people. They get credit for being marvelous, but they don't get credit for relating. And that's what they're lacking. And so they can certainly learn that in any analytic and therapeutic, if it goes deep enough, place, as long as people don't say with such disparagement, oh, they're a narcissist. Well, okay, as you said, we all are in some ways. Then what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, what happened to what was his name?
Narcissus.
Narcissus and Echo, when they both didn't work on it. That sounds like a beautiful little love story there, and a fantastic book to read. It's a book? Is it a book? Or?
No. You can go online and look up The Tale of Narcissus by Ovid, O-V-I-D, and you will find it online. It's not short, but it's not that long. So it's
but that sounds super valuable for somebody's relationship to be reading that. I was just going to ask about relationships and whether people would be urged to work on that, or if narcissism really drives away somebody's ability to create love and strengthen it. But hearing that book, I'm assuming your answer would be leaning into the direction of it can get better there without them doing work alone, but I might be wrong.
Well, they can do work alone, or they can do work with their partner. But definitely people can learn to love, because that is a natural instinct that we all are born with, is the desire to love and be loved. So it's in there. It's just how to access it. And was it buried by trauma, bad experiences, depression, sadness, all kinds of things?
I keep on seeing Jungian analysis and just one after another example. That's I'm definitely gonna have to read up on some of these concepts a little bit, because I feel like I've spotted it like 7 times at least while talking, and I'm gonna have to know how to reference to that. But wow, a short phrase or term that stood out to me. I have zero idea where this is gonna go. By the way, what is shadow seduction? What is that?
Oh, right. Okay, that's the one I'm currently writing on. That will come out next year.
Okay.
It's a very good question. The shadow in Jungian psychology represents the potential and the problems, the things we don't see. Oftentimes, we project it onto other people. So we say the simple, so-and-so is the enemy. No, they're not the enemy. They're easy to project onto. We might be the enemy of ourselves. And that's what the seductive part is within a psychology. So many people, psychology meaning our own inside selves, so many people are drawn to self-deception, to not listening to themselves, not honoring themselves, and they are seduced away from themselves. It's an intricate psychological space, but the issue is you're not using all that you are.
So am I understanding it that they're being seduced away from themselves, from something that somebody else is projecting on them that's their problem?
No,
Okay, I misunderstood.
No, you got to part way.
Okay.
So we learn to seduce ourselves away from ourselves early in life, right?
Okay.
It's like we don't learn how to manifest all of our talents. Okay. So we learn to be seduced away. Originally, by the interactions in the family or people we're close to, and then it becomes self-fulfilling. Oh, I can't do it. I'm not able. I will destroy myself. I will seduce myself away from being me. So the rest of that phrase relates to sirens and demon lovers. So we learn to go against ourselves, and that's the shadow seduction of the psyche. We learn it. We learn it in school. We learn it in our culture. And a little bit, I'm going to make this alignment. It's like believing fake news. Okay? Believing fake news. But do we know what is fake and what is true? And sometimes we grow up and we don't really realize the messages that we give ourselves are bad messages. And that's the shadow seduction. Equally, we don't learn to listen to our potential, and then we don't get to manifest it.
Wow, that sounds like a huge subject, and I'm sure others understand that much better right off the bat than me. It takes a little bit of understanding of different vocabulary. Yeah, I find that when I don't understand certain words really well, that that I can't really grasp onto the concept that quick.
It's true.
I know that right when I get off the podcast, I'm going to search it, and then it's going to make complete sense. I'm going to be like, oh, if only I knew that word's definition perfectly. But that shows an interesting way to frame a word and something that I definitely have not heard about. So I'm excited to hear more about that. And why don't we talk about dreams quickly? Because I know that this is a huge subject that I've heard about. I haven't heard about it recently, and I'd be interested to see how a Jungian analyst looks at dreams and how important that role of dreams plays.
Well, we spoke about the unconscious. So every night we kind of go unconscious into sleep and dreams. And actually, it's healthy to dream. The people that don't dream, they don't get into a deep enough sleep. It's not so healthy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've made studies of people. You have to go into alpha waves or alpha level, and those people that can't, they don't do well. They get sick. It's all kinds of things. Yes.
Wow.
So you really need your dream world, and the way you can remember dreams is you tell yourself, "I want to remember my dreams." It's very simple. I'm open. I want to remember. I can do it. Whatever happens, and you write them down, talk them into your phone, something, so you keep them, and then you look at them and you go, what are my reactions to this dream? Why did I have the dream? It's not random, has tons of information about you that you don't know, and dreams are like a mirror. So they give you a mirror of you, and you get to see yourself in a different dimension. And they don't lie. So if you have a dream and you say, oh, that's not me, well, it is you. Maybe you don't like that it's you, but it is you.
So ignoring that would be a bad thing.
I don't think it's so good. I would agree with you. Yes. So, and they're very...
Sorry, I was asking that as a question. I obviously have zero experience, but that's what I was taking from that. That's very interesting. Two things you say back to back that actually I thought would be the opposite. Maybe that people who dream very vividly, that wouldn't be such a great thing, maybe.
It's good.
And yeah, and then the second part, it's very, very, very interesting that so are dreams a large part of Jungian analysis?
Well, they're a part of it. They're a part, like whatever one is dealing with in one's life. They certainly help. They give information that we really need, actually. So yes, they're a part of it. Like the active imagination is a part. Like anything, any of the information that people bring into the analytic work is a part of the work. Everything
Yeah.
is. Everything
So
is.
would you take more into consideration when somebody's saying they're experiencing dreams that are really bothering them or making them question, or is it something that you would kind of dig into if they didn't mention it?
I oftentimes ask, do you have any dreams? And people can or cannot. So, dreams can come in many different ways.
Hmm.
People might have experiences and they say, oh, this was like a dream. So it was, but
Yeah.
it's very interesting to key into this part of life. Look at how many hours we spend sleeping. You might as well use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, whoa, that's a really interesting way of looking at that, how I can get some
Hmm.
value out of my sleep time.
Yes.
It's oh
Yes.
wow.
It
Wow, wow.
helps.
My brain is processing for me when I'm asleep, it sounds like it.
It's what it does. So it wants you
Wow.
to be aware of that it's processing. Yes.
Wow. I need a Jungian analyst to take a look at that so I can unlock those 8 hours of thinking time. That's
Yeah.
actually an interesting. I wonder how many people do that, and I'm sure that.
You'd be amazed. There are a lot of people, and they've been keeping journals since they were little of their
Wow,
dreams. Yes, I'm serious.
wow,
And
and that paid off
mhm,
huge, probably.
you did. They've got, reams of journals and they have themes. Each person has got a different theme, changes throughout life. Some don't change. Some people have repetitive dreams for years. Dreams are
Yeah,
amazing. And if they do have them for years, the dream is saying, you didn't get it. I'm going to repeat it. So the dreams are very helpful. You didn't get
yeah.
this topic. I'm going to repeat it for you. Go for it.
Wow, I didn't think of people who track that. That's almost like an asset by itself. If somebody came and spoke to you with that, I feel like they would just get so much insight. Like, oh my goodness, wow, I didn't. That's definitely a perspective. I'm gonna look that up and see what people have
Okay.
learned.
Okay.
But anyways, Susan Schwartz, thank you so much for joining us today. I learned so much about this. I did not know anything about Jungian analysis, and I feel very much more understanding of it. I'm going to have to listen to this, search up vocabulary. But the story that you mentioned in 30 BC, I think, was something for me personally that just that was just
Stuck there.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just something that I'm going to reference. I know for the rest of my life and definitely read. So thank you very much for mentioning that to the audience. And one more time, why don't you let people know where they can find you and the things that you're working on? Because you mentioned that you're working on a new project.
Yes, yes. My webpage is www.susanschwartzphd.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And I wanted to say one more thing, which is you said that you are going to look up the story by Ovid and
Yeah.
it resonates for you. So obviously, so this is another Jungian principle, synchronicity, which is things that come together that we don't plan, but they're meaningful.
Mhm.
So you didn't know about Narcissus. I knew the myth. You were wonderful to have me on your podcast.
Wow.
Many, many reasons why synchronicity, it was meaningful to
Mhm.
you and also meaningful to me. So thank you very much.
Wow, what a compliment. That is the best compliment to the end of
It's
the
true.
podcast so far. And
It's true.
thank you so much. Well, have a wonderful rest of the day. I can see why
Thank
you're
you.
on all those social media platforms with this analysis, and I'm sure you're very busy with that. So have a fantastic rest of the day. Thanks for talking
Thank
to
you.
the audience
And
today.
and you too. Thank you.